When I went down to get the bike was not even there.
They apparently had a machete on them.
I was crying, I legit cried. It was so brutal.
Where is my personal rights and authority here?
ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಜತೆಗಿದ್ದವನೇ ರೂಪಿಸಿದ್ದ ಕಳೆದುಕೊಂಡು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಆದರೆ ಮತ್ತಷ್ಟು ಹಣಕ್ಕೆ ರೌಡಿಗಳು ಬೇಡಿಕೆ ಇಟ್ಟಿದಂತೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಅಶೋಕ್ ನಗರ ಪೊಲೀಸರಿಗೆ ದೂರು ನೀಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ.
Hey, I'm Ruben. I'm currently studying at St. Joseph's College in Shantinagar.
I'm Thomas Jose. I'm doing my third year BCom in Bangalore.
I'm Ken Georgetown. I'm doing my final year in Bachelor's of Visual Communication in Bangalore.
It's kind of like the only college I got admission into. But at the same time, I was pretty excited because I've heard stories on Bangalore, how Bangalore would be a college student's dream, in fact.
Primarily because the course was only available there. And then the main reason why I chose Bangalore was, for the pleasant environment, all those vibes that people tell you about, the hype, which was very common in films. And everywhere you go around, people say Bangalore is like a very good city where you can have fun, be yourself.
I thought it would be more fun there. Meanwhile, I could study and do my learning.
A couple months into the city, I realized that it's not all that it seems to be.
All those things are just pure lies. So in my first year, I stayed in a PG, which was in a quite peaceful neighborhood, and it was very safe and secure there. And by second year, I moved into an apartment along with 3 of my friends.
We picked this house at the last minute, during the last day of our first year, and we were like, we don't want to run about.
The apartment was in a shady area.
College students were not the majority there. In that particular third cross area, you could see that there was a bunch of people who have been residents of that particular area for quite some time. So a couple things that people should know about Bangalore. It's not Malayali friendly, you could say, especially student Malayali friendly. In response to that, we've had a number of incidents that reflected on our life there and how it influenced how we run around in the city. It was all fun and games initially.
And these locals, they always had a sketch on us, and they always kept us under their surveillance. You can say that because we are students coming from an outside state and we don't know their language.
We were pretty carefree about who comes in the flat. There were a bunch of people who were visiting our flat every day. We didn't think too much into it. We didn't realize that it would be a problem or it posed a problem to anybody because it never really did.
One of my friend from Kerala came to visit me once. He came from Kerala in his bike, and the next day I was supposed to go to college in that bike, and later when I went down to get the bike was not even there, and by then only we understood how that area was.
And one of the instances was when one day my friend she came over, and she told when she got in that she saw a few locals. They were super drunk and they were constantly blabbering, and she told me that she was afraid to leave when she was about to go around 10:30, and she asked me to drop her off, and then I went along with her. As soon as we left the door, the locals were staring at us. We saw that, and the moment we walked right past them, they stopped both of us and they asked what are you guys doing? Where are you going? What are you doing at 10 o'clock in the night? And we were super scared. We didn't know what to say. And then all of a sudden they were very good to us. They were it's okay, you guys leave. It's fine. And then I went along with her. I dropped her to the lane where she lives. And then when I was coming back, they stopped me. And then one guy came at me and they asked me, what were you doing? I said nothing happened. And suddenly the other guy, who was very drunk, he gave me a huge slap right at my neck. I couldn't breathe for a second. And then the other guy who was talking to me said, you leave suddenly. And then I ran up to my apartment. I was very scared that day. It was very hard to sleep.
We couldn't move out because we had paid a large amount of deposit. So we were actually helpless.
There's this one particular incident where me and a friend of mine, we were going to Corner House to get ice cream. We were in a scooter, just two of us. We were have wearing a helmet, all the precautions were there. The policeman just was coming out of airlines. He came up in front of us and told us to park the bike. And he told us, move our helmet, show your licenses and whatnot. Everything was fine. The next thing he's like, whip out your phones. We want to check what's on your phones. I've heard this happen too, but in my mind, I always thought I'd retaliate and say, why do you need to check our phones and whatnot? But in reality, you could say I was a bit scared. So we gave him our phone. He checked both of our phones like pretty thoroughly. He checked my messages. He went through my private galleries. And once he found that there was no way to extort us, he was a bit pissed. I could see that on his face. And we were told, okay, leave, go back home quick, like it's his city. I felt, okay, what is happening in the city and where is my personal rights and authority here?
One of my friends from college also used to come. He came to stay over at my place, and then later at that night we went to the terrace. Some localites were drinking or something. When they saw us, they started throwing. There were some beer bottles or I don't know whatever it was. They were howling and all.
Later on, the biggest incident happened.
We really had one unforgettable experience.
I still remember the date. It's 12th December 2019.
It was our college fest, and we didn't have class. We all were in our apartment, and by noon, actually, I guess when two of my friends went out,
Two people barged into the house. At that time, when they got in, I was not at home. I went to take the food that I ordered.
I had spent the night at a friend of mine.
we thought it was them only who came back, and I was the one who opened the door, and it was one like localite who came with a dagger, and he was like literally threatening me. He shouted at us, and like he like made us all move to a corner, and he started beating all of us.
And when I came back, I rang the bell and nobody's answering. And then suddenly two random strangers are opening the door and they like held my hands, they pulled me in, they took me inside to my room and they like smashed me on my face. They constantly kept hitting me. I didn't know what was happening. It was very confusing. I sat there taking all the hits. I was crying, a legit cry. I screamed a lot, and then they got hold of my wallet and my mobile phone. I was made to stand with the rest of my friends.
I came back next morning. This is on the 12th, and I knock on the door. I kept knocking, and there's nobody opening the door. Finally, somebody opens the door. He opened the door and he just pulled me in. I see probably three pretty huge men actually. They look like, as the proper term is rowdy sheeter. I saw that three of my roommates and a couple of our friends, three of our friends other than my roommates were in the flat at that time. They were all kneeling on the ground in a semicircle sort of way against the wall. He pulled me in and pulled me against the wall. Immediately first thing he did is check my pockets. I took out my phone, took out my wallet, checked my wallet. There was nothing in my wallet. That was essentially broke at that time. There was a slap. The first initial slap after checking my pockets. He asked me if I live here. I said, I live here. He slapped me again for that. While I was getting searched, they were checking the shelves and they found a pair of earrings that belonged to a friend of my roommates. And he was like, oh, the girls are coming, call them. And he slapped my roommate for that actually. Essentially, they had a problem with people coming to the flat, the amount of people coming to the flat. And they checked all our phones for our pictures and same thing the police did. Then he started ransacking the place like properly. He went through our suitcases. He went through all our clothes, cupboards. While during the search, they found I used to play tennis, so they found my tennis racket. And they started whacking everybody. When I mean whacking everybody, they literally swung at our heads.
And it was so brutal. They didn't even consider us as a students. Later on, they took all our valuables, including my gold chain and my gold ring. And even I had my iPad with them.
I lost my camera, my DSLR camera. It was given to me by my cousin. I borrowed from my cousins.
A smartwatch, my Bose speakers, my roommate's Bose earphones, around 3 gold chains, 2 gold rings, and a couple other items. They even stole perfumes, by the way. Yeah, they basically emptied us.
And later, two locals came in and they went with that bag. And the first two people, they asked for money. They said if you want your things back, you have to give them like around 60,000 cash. I mean 1 lakh. They said 1 lakh first. We didn't have any ways to give money. They asked us to open our Google GPay account and we had to show them our account balance.
We started calling all our friends. Literally, we called everyone. We took a collective decision not to let our parents know right now because, I mean, we couldn't even imagine what they'd start thinking and the amount of tension they'd go through. So we decided we'll take care of this on our own. Within a couple of hours, I was able to get around 13,000. Like literally every penny is from my friends. I called them and explained the scene pretty quickly, and I asked them, they like $500, $1,000. That day, that amount came up to like 13,000 each. So there are like 7 of us. So that's close to a lakh, I'm imagining. And one of my roommates was sent to get the money. Obviously, if he Google Pay them, they'll have a trace of the money. So he was sent to the ATM to withdraw the money along with one of the goons. And they can only withdraw 10,000 at a time. So by like 60,000, the ATM stopped working. Obviously, they said this is not enough. This happened on a Thursday. And they said, okay, we're taking all of your stuff. If you want the rest of the things, we need the rest of the money on Saturday. And finally, around 7 o'clock, they left. The first thing we did, we packed all the essentials and we got out of there. We escaped. The proper term is escape. We literally thought we were going to get beat up in Shantinagar, and we went to KR Puram. We had a friend who's living in KR Puram. So by Friday, it's a huge decision. So we have to decide whether to give them the money or go to a lawyer and straighten things out and go the legal way, basically. We finally thought better contact the lawyer and give the money to him rather than give it to Appu and his gang and lose everything.
We didn't know anything about the law or the things that we had to do because we were so new to this.
A friend of ours had informed us of this lawyer. And we called the lawyer. We just said, sir, this is the issue. And he was very cool. He knew how to talk to his clients very well. The next day morning, we went to his place. We told him how the things that transpired, everything that had happened, that we gave this much money. And it went well. Appu called us on Saturday. And by that time, we were already at the police station. We went to Ashok Nagar police station. The policemen were actually quite on it. They were pretty active. They realized that this is not something of a small scale. We had gotten beaten up. Things like valuables were stolen. When we checked, the valuables came up to around 4 lakhs plus the money that we had already gave. So it's quite a bit of money. Thomas had his phone with him while he went to get the money. So when he coming back, he's the only one with the phone. So as we handed the money, he was standing in the back and he was quickly able to capture a video of Appu counting the money, which proves very crucial to the investigation. They took us all of us to a different hotel room from the station where they wanted us to write down our complaint, and that was a bit of a process. It took a couple of hours. 2 police officers accompanied us.
Within 2-3 days, the police started their investigation. They went in jeep in their mufti uniforms.
Finally, all 4 of them were caught, and we were called to the station as well.
All of those things were returned to the police station. We thought everything was over, that we were gonna get back our things.
That's when they're telling us, okay, we can't return these right away, their evidence. We have to file a charge sheet first, and that's gonna take time. It takes about 90 days for us to like formally give a request in the court to get our things back. It was December, around December 20th. It was Christmas holidays, so we just wanted to come back home. We were so, you could say, traumatized from the entire event. Like, we hated the city. We felt super unsafe in the city. We just wanted to come back home to Kerala. By January, we were back in Bangalore, and it was pretty hard for us. We jumped around houses because we promised ourselves we're not going back to the C Street. We knew that the rowdy sheeters, they posted their bail and got out. So we were pretty scared to go back to Shantinagar. By March, we were all trying to get our stuff back. Next thing I know, the pandemic hits and we're all back home again, thinking we'll be coming back in 10 to 15 days. We had a friend from that day, Vipul. He's a resident in Bangalore. So it seemed that we are not going back to Bangalore anytime soon. So we decided we'd write over the ownership to Vipul so that he alone can get the materials even if we were not there. And Vipul is the one who had to go to court and get the material. He actually ran about quite a bit. Interestingly enough, initially we gave the lawyer an amount of 15,000. That's what he said. During the lockdown, he'd call me for another 8,000, which we all again got from people and paid. And from the lockdown period on, we started to realize that it's not all as it seems. As time went on, he started shadowing our calls.
I kept contacting the advocate. He never answered. In a week, when I text him, he responds like after 2-3 days, and then when I call him, he call me back in like 2-3 days and tell me that you will get it in by next week or after 2 weeks. And I believed him like throughout. Choosing him was the biggest mistake that we ever did. And then we lost a lot of our money, our time, and then he tried to drain our pockets as much as possible. To a point, I was like frustrated, and I had to involve my parents. And my parents then later called one of my cousins who lived in Bangalore. He knew the language, so I went along with him to the court frequently on March. This March, every week, twice we went to the court. We sat there. We waited there for a long time. We went there in the morning. We left by evening, and nothing happened. We didn't get any help. To a point, it was like there was no use going with my cousin to the court, and then I had to call my advocate. One day he was like, "You tell all of your friends to come together, which would make the procedure easy." And then by March mid, the people who were like involved in this came to Bangalore in the hope that we would get our things back.
Everything changed. The lawyer's tone with us changed. He's like, "You're the reason this hasn't happened this whole entire time, and now you're blaming me." He basically was saying that we never came together for this while we were behind him the entire time.
He asked me to tell all of the people who were involved in this case to like pay 13,000 each. It was not possible. All of us like already wasted a lot of money, and we didn't have like 13,000 to pay. And then I told the advocate that like all of us would pitch in a decent amount.
Apart from the 25 we had already given him, it's all for a release form basically. And on the day of the release, his colleague had bribed a few people and finally got the release order. So after a long series of talks and calls and us running behind the police and everything that's in between, the lawyer decided that we have to pay him 40,000 in order to get this done. And finally we sorted the money, like 40,000, and gave it to him, and he gave us a release order. We took the release order that day itself to the police station, and the officer said, "Come back another day like any other government office." We went there the next day again, and we reached around 10 o'clock, and then the process began. I thought it would get done pretty quickly, but it took us the entire day.
We went in the morning and they said to come by afternoon. And then we went by afternoon, and then we sat the whole day. We were so tired, we had to sit near the gate. They would like let us inside.
My speaker and the smartwatch was not mentioned in the complaint. I spoke to the IO about the investigating officer about it, and he said during that day a fourth person was absconding. We didn't catch them. So when he did catch them, he wanted to pin those two materials on his set. That's why they haven't mentioned in the order yet. He told Vipul that if I want my materials, I'll have to pay him a bit extra. He wanted around 5,000, but apart from everything that we were paying. And we said, we don't have that, but we'll give you around 3,000, and that's what he did. I called all my friends up again, and I said around 1,500. My friends prepared the rest of the money, and he agreed.
After we got our things back, we were so overjoyed and happy. It was a big relief.
Yeah, finally we got our stuff back, man.
The whole experience taught us a lot of lessons. We didn't know the law. We didn't know any of the legal procedures, and because of that the advocate and the police took advantage of that. The fact that we were students and we didn't know the language was a contributor to everyone taking advantage of us. I would recommend anyone moving away from their native place to think twice before renting out an apartment in a state where they're not familiar with, where they don't know the language and people.